Welcome to the first Ethereum technical analysis video that I am about to share with you all. And I thank you all for welcoming on this journey with me as we track Ethereum and the overall process and growth that it holds for the future. And a quick fact about Ethereum is that Ethereum is more than a cryptocurrency. Ethereum is not just digital money. It is programmable blockchain that powers smart contract, DeFi platform, NFTs, and decentralized apps. Now here we are looking at the monthly time frame. You can see we had a higher high, came down, higher low, proceed on to another higher high, higher low, didn't break the previous higher high. Then from there on, created a minor higher low, then retested the same higher high, then created another higher low, which still fits into this pullback, which makes those ups and down to be a minor. Then right here on April 1st, 2025, that was right here considers to be here we'll consider to be the higher low point from this higher high to this higher low. Pull back, and now it is pushing, gaining back momentum, and this higher low actually occurred on the EMA, the daily EMA, sorry, the daily MA, which is a great confluence signal, given that he had a wick and a nice engulfing right there that occurred at that specific time also. Let me go ahead and put a circle around it. Oh, I'll mess it up. Right here. This right here is what we will call a confluence confirmation. It's rejecting of the MA, the daily MA, with the wick and a nice engulfing. As you can see, the bullish momentum candle overtook the previous bearish, and pushing up on the upside. But that right here is simply on the monthly time frame. That is the long-term outlook, but we're gonna break down into the weekly, and I'll share my theory on where Ethereum is headed. Let me just have this shown simply on the weekly. I'll say not the monthly. So when we go over on the smaller time frames, we don't have too much things on the chart. Okay, go over to the weekly, and on the weekly here, since that big pullback right there came up and did test on the 38.20 Fibonacci retracement, and right now currently it at the TP2, which is the 61.8%. Right now, I would not be surprised to see a minor pullback and then continue on the momentum. But doesn't mean there will be a pullback, because there is still great momentum on the upside that could feed into the narrative and keep it going to the moon. but I don't do analysis really on the weekly time frame. I particularly like to dive into the daily, and from the daily we can see more data and be more precise with our technical analysis. And here same, when we pull up our Fibonacci, you can see the retracement here at 38.2 more clearly, and from there it reached the 61.80, and since then it did it did what you would consider to be a engulfing on the downside, and now we see that it is still trying to push down on the downside. I guess there are a lot of sellers that are entering the market for Ethereum, or overall, let's just admit it, people, retail traders, are most likely taking profit around this area here because he hasn't touched it since December of last year. So throughout this whole year, you see that Ethereum has been going on a downhill, a big retrace, and during the first week of April, that's when the buyer came in and we're pushing up on the upside. So that is to be expected. So here, let's just do this. I don't like to be too zoomed in. Actually, let's go on the weekly for just a second. Okay, on the weekly here, we can see that there is a support right here. Sorry. This is my support line on the weekly, and my resistance line on the weekly will be placed right here. Right there. Perfect. Oh, check that out. Okay. From there, every time you reach this zone here, reject, reached, reject. Right here, first reject, second reject, third reject. And on the third, it actually came down to take all this liquidity area that was resting below this support and demand zone, and right on it, that's where you can see this is exactly where it found support to regain the momentum on the upside right there. And on the daily time frame, this is where you see it more thoroughly. Let me just put this bar here, let it show on the daily so you can see better as to what I am saying. Right there, actually, let's put a little square near it. Or I actually like the circles. Yeah. And let's have this shown on the daily. Well, since it's on the weekly and due to the amount of days, that's why it's appearing on the left side. But as we can see on the weekly, it would be right there. This is where it found support to continue up on the upside. And also this right here, perfect other example of confluence, because it occurred right on a support area also on the daily MA with an engulfing. This right here, perfect confluence once again, boom, all the way up on the upside. So before, let's say, Ethereum starts on its pullback, just simply for it to regain momentum, to continue on the upside, what I am, or potentials, outcomes, or potential plays here could be that it does something like this. Where's my arrow? We'll continue up here, take out this liquidity zone, and come back down here. Then back up here to retest. And then down here to find support once again, after which, you know where we headed, to the moon. This is one scenario. Other scenario is that it could completely just skip all this higher high, higher low, higher high, and break the previous higher high, but simply to find a nice area of support to not continue that downtrend and push back up. You could simply go from there straight into the area of support, and the next play to the moon. So I'll put this one in black. So those two scenario here is what I'm looking at when it comes to the technical analysis of Ethereum. And on the 1 hour chart, which is pretty messy, you can see we're simply consolidating around this area. From here to literally around here. That is just consolidation ranges. Or better yet, we can have it now. We'll leave it here. Because when you go over on the 4 hours, none of those are breaks. See? This is just trial, reject, try, reject, try, reject. But when you go on the 1 hour, that's when it shows you more detail. So it might appear as if it broke through, but really it did not. That's why you the higher time frames show you more details and give you much more confirmation on what is actually occurring on the chart versus the smaller time frames. And so if this breaks through, let's say here, and we get a retest on this resistance zone right here, then you can confirm that we're looking for Ethereum to kind of push down slightly more on the 1 hour time frame. Daily is looking nice so far. We are still very much on the uptrend, but like all charts, it goes up and down. And this right here is my outlook. Either retrace back, and the retrace here would be to 61.8%, or if this scenario doesn't play out and it does push up to take out the resting positions up top here, then it will technically still come down to 61.8% before the rebound. But yeah, this is all, and I want to leave you with this other fact about Ethereum, and is that Ethereum supplies is now deflationary post merge. Well, since if you guys did not know before, at first Ethereum was a proof of work consensus, but now Ethereum have actually transitioned to proof of stake in 2022, which means that Ethereum's now burns more token than issued under certain conditions, which is fighting to make it more of a deflationary asset. And I thank you all for joining me today, and stay on the lookout for the next one. Peace.